Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since the discussions drifted into the Manhattan trial, I just have to say that it's ironic to hear my colleague from California speak to the integrity of our legal system. Like most Americans, I am appalled that our justice system could become so dangerously politicized. It started with the IRS harassing members of the Tea Party years ago. Then we had the FBI and intelligence agencies using what they knew was a completely fabricated story by the Clinton campaign over Russian collusion. My colleague played a large role in that and was censured by the House for his role in it. Then we had the intelligence agencies concoct a lie that the Hunter Biden laptop was a Russian hoax, and that may have decisively affected the outcome of the 2020 election. And now we have these sham cases against Donald Trump on the flimsiest of legal grounds that have never been charged before, and with the obvious intent to interfere massively with the presidential campaign. The sinister nature of these cases is that it doesn't matter that they're falling apart. That's not the point. The point is to drain Trump of his time and resources and throw the election to the Democrats. Now, the cornerstone of our justice system is equal justice under law, that no matter who we are, we're treated the same. That's why justice is depicted as blindfolded. And in each of these cases, there seem to be three standards of justice, one for Donald Trump, one for the rest of us, and then one for the Democrats. And that strikes at the heart of the matter before us, the decision to prosecute Donald Trump for mishandling classified documents and the decision not to prosecute Joe Biden for the same offense. Now, executive privilege is an important concept, has an enormous bearing on the separation of powers. The discussion, in fact, it goes back to George Washington's administration. And the discussions that a president has with his advisors or subordinates in the executive branch on any matter within the powers of his office are no more the business of the legislative branch than the discussions among members of Congress or the business of the executive. The president cannot compel Congress to divulge its deliberations any more than Congress can compel the president. So it's crystal clear to me that any official discussion between the president and any subordinate cannot be pierced. But this case is very different because it's not a conversation between the president and a subordinate over policy or the discharge of his official duties. Rather, it's an interview in the course of a criminal investigation. To me, this is far closer to the Nixon tapes. The Nixon tapes were not conversations as part of a criminal investigation, but conversations that had bearing on one. The conversation in this case is even further from the root of the executive privilege. This was an interview in a criminal investigation that clearly falls within the legitimate legislative function. It's not only a legitimate inquiry, it's a vital inquiry. How is it that there are two cases involving the handling of classified information that have been treated so radically differently? As President Donald Trump had absolute authority to declassify material at will, as Vice President, Joe Biden did not. Under the Presidential Records Act, President Trump had absolute discretion to determine what papers to retain in the course of his presidency. As Vice President, Joe Biden did not. And yet a decision was made to prosecute Donald Trump and yet not to prosecute Joe Biden by the Joe Biden administration. So it bears repeating, the foundation of our judicial system is equal justice under law. Without this, the law loses its moral authority. It simply becomes raw political force. And it's apparent to me that we are moving dangerously away from this principle of equal justice. Congress has an essential role to play in setting things right before we lose the very principles that define us as a free people. And central to this is to understand why these two cases were treated so very differently. The request of the administration is legitimate, and the contempt citation for its refusal to provide this information is entirely appropriate. And with that, I yield back.